Welcome to the program. Tonight, we're watching a remarkable shift in Europe's security map, one that Moscow never expected to face. As the war in Ukraine grinds into its fourth year, the assumption that Russia's heartland was untouchable has quietly fallen apart. Ukrainian long-range strikes have already made that clear. But now Sweden, newly seated at the NATO table, is taking a decisive step of its own, pursuing long-range cruise missiles in a move rooted not in aggression, but in a rapidly changing security reality: Sweden's call for long-range capabilities. In late November, Reuters reported that Sweden's armed forces had presented new recommendations to the government. Stockholm should acquire cruise missiles with ranges of up to 2,000 kilometers. According to Chief of Defense Staff Carl-Johan Edström, this capability would help Sweden deter threats against its territory while strengthening its contributions to NATO's broader defense framework. A range of 2,000 kilometers would place a large portion of northern Europe and parts of western Russia within reach. While the report does not name a specific adversary, Swedish outlet SVT highlighted that Russia is recognized as the most significant military challenge in the region, and that the Swedish analysis anticipates Russia rebuilding its military capacity within 2 to 5 years, despite losses in Ukraine. The importance of defensive framing. One detail in Edström's report drew particular attention. Sweden states that such long-range weapons would only be used under the conditions of NATO's Article 5, which treats an attack on one member state as an attack on all. NATO emphasizes that assistance under Article 5 can take many forms, not always involving direct military force. This clarification serves an important strategic purpose. By tying the use of long-range missiles to Article 5, Sweden presents its plans as part of a defensive posture. It signals that the weapons are not intended for unilateral offensive action, but rather to protect Sweden and its allies should a NATO state be threatened. How Article 5 shapes Sweden's posture. The positioning also provides Sweden itself an added layer of security. As a NATO member, Sweden could invoke Article 5 if attacked, meaning any hostile action against Swedish territory would automatically involve the broader alliance. This makes it clear to potential adversaries that a strike on Sweden would no longer be a dispute with a single nation, but with one of the world's most powerful collective defense organizations. The presence of long-range missiles within that alliance reinforces the credibility of deterrence. The leading candidate, the Taurus cruise missile. Although Edström did not identify the missile Sweden intends to purchase, one system has emerged as a likely candidate: the German-Swedish Taurus KEPD 350, already ordered by Sweden earlier this year. According to Reuters and defense industry sources, Sweden has signed agreements not only to procure the missile, but also to integrate it into its fleet of Gripen fighter jets. While other systems may also be evaluated, the Taurus appears to be the most immediate option. Capabilities of the Taurus system. The Taurus missile has been in service since 2005 and is designed for precision strikes against fortified or high-value targets. Saab, one of the system's manufacturers, emphasizes its accuracy, low-altitude flight profile, and resilience against electronic interference. One of its most distinctive features is its tandem warhead, designed to penetrate layers of reinforced material before detonation. Though the missile's exact performance has not been tested in real-world combat scenarios, available data indicates that it is built to operate in challenging environments. Where the Taurus falls short range. The Taurus's primary limitation in relation to Sweden's goals is its range, roughly 500 kilometers. Although significant, it falls far short of the 2,000-kilometer reach described in Edström's recommendations. A 500-kilometer missile launched from Swedish territory could reach parts of northwestern Russia if aircraft operate over the Baltic Sea, but it would not reach Moscow or central Russian military facilities. It remains unclear whether Sweden intends to modify the Taurus system, purchase a different missile entirely, or develop a new domestic weapon with the longer range. Some analysts have noted that U.S. Tomahawk cruise missiles approach the desired range, but Sweden has not publicly indicated plans to procure them, nor are such missiles compatible with the Gripen without major modifications. Why the plans still matter, even without a 2,000 kilometers missile? Even without a finalized system, the strategic implications are significant. From Moscow's perspective, Sweden's move represents not a new threat, but a reinforcement of NATO's northern defenses. Because Sweden sits close to the Baltic Sea and cooperates closely with Finland, another recent NATO member, its decision to enhance long-range strike capabilities adds depth to NATO's potential deterrent posture along Russia's northwestern border. Importantly, this does not mean Sweden intends to use such weapons preemptively or offensively. Instead, it signals that Sweden wants to ensure it can respond credibly if aggression occurs anywhere within the alliance. Russia's long-standing concerns about Sweden joining NATO. Russia's concerns about Sweden's NATO membership began long before Stockholm formally joined. In April 2022, shortly after the invasion of Ukraine, the Kremlin issued warnings that Swedish accession would not bring stability to Europe. Presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov criticized NATO as confrontational and argued that the alliance's expansion would require Russia to rebalance its security posture. Yet by June of that year, when Sweden's membership appeared inevitable, President Vladimir Putin publicly softened his stance, claiming that Russia had no fundamental disputes with Sweden or Finland. Even so, he added that if military infrastructure appeared on their territories, Russia would respond proportionally, a pattern of ambiguous messaging. This inconsistency is familiar in Russian foreign policy rhetoric. Statements often alternate between reassurance and caution, reflecting evolving strategic calculations. While Moscow may state that NATO expansion is not a concern, it simultaneously warns that it will take measures if that expansion results in new deployments close to its borders. Sweden's pursuit of long-range strike systems, even if solely intended for deterrence, falls into the category of actions that Russia has previously said would prompt attention. Why Russia watches Sweden closely? Russia's unease is shaped by both geography and capability. Although Sweden and Russia do not share a land border, they face each other across the Baltic Sea. Sweden's location, combined with its modern air force, strong defense industry, and close cooperation with Finland, Estonia, and Latvia, gives it a level of influence in the region that extends beyond its size. With Finland, now in NATO, and sharing a long land border with Russia, any advanced capabilities introduced by Sweden could, in theory, strengthen the alliance's overall flexibility and response options. The potential for Nordic defense cooperation? One realistic concern for Moscow is not that Sweden would independently deploy missiles close to Russia, but that the broader Nordic region, Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden could integrate their defense assets more closely under NATO. In such a scenario, Swedish long-range missiles could, in a crisis, support Allied operations from bases located nearer to Russia's borders, even if Sweden itself is not directly attacked. These are hypothetical scenarios, but they illustrate why Russia monitors Sweden's decisions so closely. Capabilities today versus capabilities tomorrow. Even the shorter-range Taurus missile could be significant if deployed from certain locations. For example, eastern Finland lies substantially closer to military sites in northwestern Russia than Sweden does. While a Taurus launched from Finnish territory would still not reach Moscow, it could place other strategic installations under potential threat in the event of an alliance-wide defensive response. A future missile with a 2,000-kilometer range would expand those possibilities considerably. Sweden's evolving national mindset. Perhaps the most underappreciated element of Sweden's defense transformation is the shift in national mindset. In January 2024, the former commander-in-chief of the Swedish Armed Forces, Mikael Bydén, cautioned that the security environment in Europe had fundamentally changed. His message was not that war was imminent, but that Sweden needed to be prepared for instability in the years ahead. While some Swedish politicians felt the message was stark, the broader public conversation has increasingly acknowledged that European security cannot be taken for granted. Growing awareness of hybrid threats. In March 2025, Sweden's National Security Service, SAPO, echoed these concerns. Its analysts reported an increase in hybrid threats, including disinformation and attempts to undermine public trust. According to SAPO's head, Charlotte von Essen, Sweden faces a real risk that its security climate could worsen if these efforts succeed. These warnings align with similar assessments across Europe, where governments have noted increased activity intended to weaken democratic institutions and sow division. Sweden's desire to strengthen its defensive capabilities, including long-range weapons, must be understood within this larger context of resilience. A region preparing for uncertainty. Taken together, Sweden's missile plans, NATO membership, and strategic assessments reflect a country preparing thoughtfully for uncertainty rather than seeking confrontation. The Swedish government is not signaling aggressiveness, but rather acknowledging that stability can no longer be assumed. With Russia expected to rebuild much of its military strength in the coming years, Sweden and other European nations believe that credible deterrence is essential to maintaining long-term peace. Why the missile debate matters even before procurement. Even if no final missile system has been selected, the conversation itself is meaningful. For Russia, the prospect of a technologically advanced Nordic nation implementing long-range capabilities within NATO's framework marks a significant shift in the balance of deterrence in Northern Europe. For Sweden, it symbolizes the recognition that the security environment has undergone profound change and that the country must adapt accordingly. For NATO, it demonstrates that new members are not merely joining the alliance, but actively contributing to its collective strength. A strategic transformation already underway. Whether Sweden ultimately purchases the Taurus missile, develops a new long-range system, or acquires another platform altogether, the broader significance lies in the country's strategic evolution. Sweden has transitioned from decades of military non-alignment to becoming a central actor in Northern European security. Its pursuit of advanced defensive capabilities reflects a sober assessment of the regional landscape. For Russia, this represents a clear message. The Nordic region is more unified, more prepared, and more committed to collective defense than at any point in modern history. For Europe, it marks another step toward ensuring that aggression, wherever it arises, is met with credible and coordinated deterrence.